Hi everyone, my name is Deanna and welcome to my channel about stories that happen in life. Sit back, pour yourself a hot drink. I think this is going to be very interesting. Well, before we start, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a lot of new and useful videos. A little girl, Dina, came running home full of emotions and excitement from the recently happened events. She wanted to tell her favorite grandmother Galia about what had happened on the street, but the girl very much doubted that her grandmother needed to know it. And in the yard, a strange uncle is offering candy to the girls. Gathering all her will, in a fist blurted out Dana, "I have two questions for you. Why is the uncle strange, and did you take candy from him?" Her grandmother asked sternly, stirring the soup in the huge pot. The girl was afraid to be completely honest with her grandmother because her reaction was completely unpredictable. But Dina could not lie or avoid answering, because Grandma Galia always, in a way nobody knew, could understand whether her granddaughter was lying or not. Dina, at her age, understood perfectly well that strangers should be wary of adults and should not talk to even the most harmless, at first glance, strangers on the street, especially if you were walking alone. She immediately remembered the tragic story she had been told about how in a small neighboring town, 5 little girls had been kidnapped and taken out of town by an adult man they didn't know. After several endlessly flowing months, the man was still apprehended. Until then, all the inhabitants of the town were in a state of great tension. Therefore, to tell Baba Gala about what a reckless act she had committed, Dina was hard, but also the girl had no way out. The grandmother of the little girl, after her hard and far from easy work at school, retired and took full responsibility for the care of the house and upbringing of her granddaughter. Margarita Genadievna. Dina's mother worked at school as a teacher and in parallel tutoring in the evenings, so she came home very late and had no time for her daughter and household chores. Baba Galia looked strictly but patiently at the girl, waiting for her to gather her thoughts and still be able to tell her grandmother the whole truth without hiding the slightest detail. Strange, because he smiled and wanted to seem kind, but his eyes weren't very kind. Doubting her decision to tell her grandmother after all, Dina began, occasionally looking away. "Did you take candy from him?" Baba Galia inquired cautiously. She already knew what the girl would answer, but only wanted to confirm her guesses. Of course, inside, Grandma still hoped that Dina had not taken candy from this strange man, but her long experience in working with children did not give her the right to make a mistake. Grandma couldn't believe that the girl Dina had raised for so many years, invested so much of her time and experience in, could disobey her. "How much candy, and when did you take and eat it?" Raising her tone, Baba Galia asked sternly. "But I didn't take any," her granddaughter answered her uncertainly. Dina was very ashamed that she had decided to take the candy despite the warnings of the adults. But she was even more ashamed of her unsuccessful attempt to lie to her favorite and only grandmother. So after a couple of minutes of thought, she told the whole truth. Surprisingly to her granddaughter, her grandmother did not swear and did not even say anything. But Dina was up to tears unpleasant that she had offended Grandma Galia. She was even ready to tolerate any punishment, only if the grandmother did not keep silent. After all, the girl perfectly understood that the grandmother is very worried about her and will not survive if something bad happens to her. Galina Semyonovna, through the tears in her eyes, stroked her granddaughter's head, giving her a little hope that everything was all right and she was not angry. But Baba Galia was not angry with the girl. Rather, she felt a strong resentment at herself for not watching Dina and not being able to prevent this unpleasant situation. After all, no one could know what that stranger was really up to. "Did I upset you?" Dina asked her grandmother pitifully and uncertainly, already knowing the answer. "Of course you have. We've talked to you many times about adults and strangers, and you still wanted to trick me," said Grandma Galia disappointedly but confidently and still sternly. "Forgive me, please," the girl said in a low voice, snuggling into her grandmother's shoulder and breathing in the smell of her warm terrycloth robe. Baba Galia always smelled of Dina's favorite pies, which her grandmother had been taught to bake by her missing husband, Grandpa Gina. Dinavka was not told much about her grandfather, most likely the reason that it was hard for Galina Semyonovna to come to terms with the loss of her favorite person. Gennady disappeared unexpectedly on the most ordinary, unremarkable autumn day. He simply did not return home from his work in a car repair shop. Galina's daughter Margarita at that time went to work in a neighboring town, but she had to return home after Gennady's disappearance to support her poor mother and help with the search for her father. But Rita didn't return home completely alone. To Galina's surprise, she was pregnant, but she refused to answer all questions about who was the baby's father. "Mom, I just don't want to discuss the subject." Margarita answered her mother's questions without a single emotion, waving it away. Galina Semyonovna never gave up hope that some evening her husband would return home, healthy and unharmed. Every evening, for 10 years, grandmother, out of habit, went outside at exactly 7 o'clock and waited for the appearance of her spouse. I believe, hope, and wait. If it were not for this faith, and not little Dina, it is unlikely that I would have lasted so long, sadly answered to all the reproaches of her daughter, Grandma Galia. Margarita Gennadyevna, in her turn, tried to establish her personal life. Her chosen one was a local policeman, Kirill. Kirill did not come to the liking of Rita's mother because she considered him unworthy of her daughter, a dishonest man. "If you failed to save your marriage, it does not mean that I will not succeed." Marguerite burst out in a burst of emotion when they broached the subject again. "You shouldn't say that, daughter," Galina replied to that one. The grandmother was very unpleasant that her advice was not wanted to listen to, and even hurt. That day, when Dina told Galina Semyonovna about a strange man offering her candy, the grandmother waited for her daughter and decided to share with her the unpleasant situation that had happened the day before. The time was already late and Dinashka was awakened by the knocking of the front door when her mother came into the apartment, so she quietly snuck into the kitchen to overhear the conversation between the adults. Dana came in from her walk today and said some strange man offered her candy. Galina tried to share the news with her daughter as quietly as possible. "What do you mean by that?" Wary, afraid of an answer, Rita asked. "I concluded that it was your daughter who was offered candy by this man. Even though Dana tried to convince me that he was treating everyone, I realized at once that my granddaughter was trying to deceive me." Galina Semyonovna said. "Do you think that this man could have been him?" Margarita asked loudly, pronouncing the last word particularly clearly. The overheard conversation between her mother and grandmother frightened little Dina very much. They continued to argue for a long time about Rita's personal life and the situation that had happened, but it did not lead to anything good. "Your daughter is the result of your failed personal life, and I don't understand the reason why you don't tell me the whole truth about who exactly is her father. Maybe it's the strange guy who feeds your daughter candy," Galina said in one breath. She was very worried about her daughter and granddaughter, because no one else in Galina's life was closer to them. Therefore, the woman tried to find at least one logical explanation for everything that was happening now. The girl could not sleep for a long time after what she had heard, and went over in her head the memories of the very stranger who offered her to eat candy. "Do you live with your mom?" An old man passing by inquired, treating Dina to another candy bar. "With my mom and grandma," answered the girl, filling her mouth with her favorite candy. "And what's your grandmother's name?" did not stop asking the stranger. "Grandma Galia." The stranger knew everything about their family, knew that the girl lived with her mother and grandmother without men, and knew their names and address. The realization of this scared little Dina. The next day, the man again waited for the girl on the street, but this time she did not risk approaching him. Returning home, Dina inadvertently overheard a conversation between her grandmother, mother, and her suitor Kirill. They were talking again about Grandpa Gina, who disappeared 10 years ago, the girl realized. "What can your Kirill tell me?" Granny Galia shouted unhappily. "What you didn't know about your husband?" The young policeman answered calmly. "Your husband was not a simple mechanic in a car repair shop." "What do you mean by that?" Bewildered grandmother. "That's the way to understand it, Mom. Daddy's main place of work was not an automobile repair shop," Margarita said irritably for Carol. After hearing further, the old lady's eyes filled with tears, such a turn of events she did not expect at all. Click on the picture to continue the story.